The emergency klaxons of the Zephyrian research station pierced through the thin atmosphere like needles through silk. David Chen pressed himself against the metallic corridor wall as another explosion rocked the facility, sending sparks cascading from damaged conduits above. "Emma," he called out, spotting the young Zephyrian scientist trapped beneath a collapsed support beam. Her crystalline blue skin had turned pale with shock, and her large compound eyes reflected fear as toxic gases began seeping from a ruptured chemical tank nearby. Without hesitation, David sprinted toward her. The beam was easily 3 times his weight, but adrenaline and human stubbornness had always been a potent combination. He wedged his shoulder beneath the twisted metal and heaved with everything he had. "Human, you must leave," Emma gasped, her voice a melodic chime even in distress. "The atmospheric processors are failing. This section will be uninhabitable in minutes." "Not happening," David grunted, straining against the beam. His muscles screamed in protest, but gradually the metal began to shift. "I didn't come 200 light-years from Earth just to watch good people die." With a final surge of effort, he lifted the beam high enough for Emma to crawl free. Her leg was injured, so David scooped her into his arms and carried her through the evacuation corridor, as the station continued its death throes around them. They made it to the emergency pods with seconds to spare. As their small craft jettisoned from the dying station, Emma stared at David with something approaching wonder. "You risked your life for me, why?" "Because that's what humans do," David replied simply, checking her injuries. "We look out for each other." 3 days later, they were rescued by a Zephyrian fleet vessel. David expected gratitude, perhaps a medal or ceremony. Instead, he found himself standing in chains before a tribunal of tall, ethereal Zephyrian elders, their skin shifting through various shades of blue and purple as they deliberated. "The law is clear," announced the lead arbiter, her voice carrying the weight of millennia. "Under the sacred doctrine of sibling hierarchy, all property and possessions of younger siblings belong to the eldest. This includes debts of life and service." Emma sat in the witness section, her expression pained. Beside her, a figure David hadn't met before rose gracefully. This was Lyra, Emma's elder sister, and the resemblance was striking except for Lyra's more mature features and the cold calculation in her compound eyes. "The human saved my sister's life," Lyra declared, her voice carrying an imperious tone that made David's skin crawl. "Therefore, by our most ancient laws, he now belongs to me. His life debt transfers to the eldest of the bloodline." David felt his jaw clench. "Excuse me? I belong to no one." The lead arbiter's skin flushed deep purple, a sign of displeasure David had learned. "Human, you clearly do not understand the gravity of your situation. You have interfered in Zephyrian affairs. Your species may practice barbaric individualism, but you are now subject to our laws." "Barbaric." David stepped forward, his chains clinking. "I saved a life. On my world, that's called heroism, not slavery." Lyra smiled coldly. "How quaint. Your primitive notions of freedom are irrelevant here. I have need of a human servant for my research. Your unique physiology will prove most educational." Emma finally spoke up, her voice trembling. "Sister, this is wrong." David acted from nobility, not obligation. "To enslave him perverts everything our ancestors intended." "Silence!" Lyra's skin flared bright red. "You forget your place, youngling. I am eldest. My word is law within our family, and this human is now family property." David had heard enough. He turned to address the tribunal directly, his voice carrying across the chamber with the kind of conviction that had driven humanity to the stars. "Your Honor, I need you to understand something about humans. We have a saying, no good deed goes unpunished. We know that sometimes helping others costs us. We do it anyway, not because we expect reward, but because it's right." The lead arbiter leaned forward, intrigued despite herself. "Continue." "But there's another thing about humans," David continued, his voice growing stronger. "We don't kneel. We don't bow. And we sure as hell don't become property. Your law may be ancient, but it's also wrong. Justice isn't about age or hierarchy, it's about doing what's right." The chamber erupted in heated discussions. Zephyrian voices chimed in complex harmonies of disagreement. Finally, the lead arbiter called for order. "The human raises—" "Interesting points," she admitted reluctantly. "However, law is law." Emma suddenly stood up, her injured leg causing her to waver. "Then I invoke the right of substitution." The entire chamber fell silent. Lyra's skin went completely white. "Emma, you can't." "I can and I do." Emma declared firmly. If our laws demand that someone serve to balance the life debt, then let it be me. I'll serve David for the same duration he would have served you. David stared at her in amazement. Emma, no. You don't have to. Actually, the lead arbiter interrupted, consulting an ancient text. This creates an interesting legal paradox. If the younger sister serves the one who saved her, and the debt belongs to the elder sister, then the debt cancels itself out. The ancient laws designed to consolidate power among the eldest had never accounted for such a scenario. The tribunal deliberated for hours before reaching their conclusion. The human will be released, the lead arbiter announced. The life debt is considered satisfied through the voluntary assumption of mutual service, which our laws recognize as null and void. As David's chains were removed, Lyra approached him, her expression unreadable. You have cost me valuable property, human. David met her gaze steadily. And you've learned something valuable in return. Sometimes the youngest sister knows better than the eldest. Later, as David prepared to return to human space, Emma joined him at the observation deck of the transport ship. Why did you do it? He asked. You could have just let things play out. Emma's skin shimmered with soft gold hues, happiness, David had learned. Because you showed me that some laws are worth breaking. And sometimes the right thing to do isn't what's written in ancient books, but what's written in the heart. David smiled. That's very human of you. I'll take that as a compliment, Emma replied, and for the first time since they'd met, David heard her laugh, a sound like crystal bells in a gentle wind. As the stars wheeled past the viewport, David reflected on the strange turns his life had taken. He'd come to the frontier to study alien cultures, never expecting to become a catalyst for changing them. But perhaps that was the most human thing of all, the stubborn refusal to accept that things had to stay the way they'd always been. Behind them, Zephyrian space grew smaller, but David suspected this wouldn't be his last encounter with their kind. And next time, maybe their laws would be a little more human.